All right, so here we go. First Rock Lake of the new year. I'm actually really glad you guys are here. You guys have, it's your last night off, and yet you chose to come here. So some of you had school today. No?
I had school.
All right, some of you guys had school. But all right, let me start with this question. How many of you guys have ever seen old family photos of you guys? So like when you were babies and stuff. You ever seen old family photos? All right, what'd you think of them? Cute?
I'm creepy.
It's a very true statement. Now, let me ask you this, and this might be even more in line with what Ruben just said. Have you ever seen a photo of your family from a long time ago?
Yes.
Yes.
It's weird sometimes. Look at it. I went through today. I was just kind of looking around. I was on my Facebook page, and sometimes my cousins like put pictures of like us as kids up. This is a picture of my family at Disney World when I was like 8 years old. So this is me.
When you
right?
You got hair.
Full head of hair, baby. Hey, I got it all. I gotta be honest. They're starting to come back into style. But my uncle here with the short shorts. Yeah, it can be a little strange looking at family photos. I went and I saw another family photo, and well, I'll just show it to you. This is me and my grandmother and my sister.
Yes!
Eli. That is Eli.
That's me right there.
He's wearing a dress.
He looks a lot like me, doesn't he? Here, I can't speak over you tonight, so I'm going to need your help here with this. It's weird, right? Like you see some old family photos. Like none of you are just like, you know what I feel like wearing tonight? I'm going to wear a kilt to YouTube. I'm not even doing it myself. I'm not, like this morning I was actually thinking about it. Not once did it cross my mind as I was getting dressed was I like, you know what? I'm gonna get a kilt and I'm gonna wear a kilt. Now here, not anymore. Now here's the other thing though. The pictures that you guys have seen when you're kids. Pictures that you kind of see up here. As you look at them, when you were a kid, did you think twice about what your parents were wearing or what your parents were making you wear? You didn't think at all about it, did you? A couple of times. Yeah. I can still actually remember my grandmother giving this to me, and I was all excited about it. Now, not so much. But at that point in my life, I was all excited because this is what we as a family were going to do. My grandparents, my father was born in Scotland. We were going to the Scottish Games over at the Altamont Fair. Like, this was just something, I know, you were right there. This was something we could do together as a family. And when they told me, hey, you can wear this, I was like, yeah.
Reason to wear it.
As I hit like middle school, even into high school, and especially once I've grown up, do you know, my grandmother once in like high school, she's like, do you ever want to wear a kilt again?
No, thank you.
That was my exact answer. No, thank you. Because as I grew up, my taste, my preferences, they started to change. I became a bit more of an individual to where as a kid, you kind of follow what your parents say. Even if you don't necessarily agree with your parents and everything, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. You want me to wear this? I really don't want, all right, yeah, whatever. And as you get older, you start to get your own preferences. You start to figure out what is mine, what you want to do with what is yours. And as you grow, it's a natural part of life to start to make your own decisions about things. Here's the thing though. As you do that, you don't have to be a jerk about it, do you? No. If your parents are like, hey, I'd like you to do this, you're like, I'm an individual. I want to do what's mine. You leave me alone. All right? You don't have to approach it that way, but it's natural in life that as you get older, you start to become more independent. You start to think more independently. You start to believe what you believe on your own instead of just, this is what my parents think. And when it comes to faith and what you believe, this is true as well. In middle and high school, you guys are starting to figure out well, what do I want to believe about God? Do I want to believe that he even exists? Do I want to believe that he's there? Do I want to believe that that he can care for me? As I look at the world around me, do I see this to be true? You guys start to ask those questions. And sometimes as we grow up, the faith of our parents, whether it's Christianity, another religion, whether it's actually not a faith at all, but what our parents' belief systems are, we tend to go along with that. And as we get older, we have to start to develop a faith of our own, something that you can call mine. And here's maybe a point that I can make. Sorry, guys, I'm just running with it. Part of being an adult is moving from a faith that's theirs, your parents, to a faith that's mine. Some of you guys, you're like 5th, 6th grade, you're like, I'm not even thinking about adulthood. Some of you guys, you're seniors, you're like, I might be an adult kind of right now. But as you guys grow and develop, hopefully the goal is that you want to be an adult someday. Hopefully the goal is not, I want to be 45 and I want my mom to still bring me breakfast in bed. All right? I know that's the dream. Hopefully you want to grow up past that, all right? Hopefully you're like, I want to live in my parents' basement and play video games all day. That's the dream. Hopefully you want to develop past that, all right? And in order to do that, you need to start to move from a faith that's theirs, a faith that's your parents', to a faith that is your own. And so you start asking good questions about, is this even real? Is this whole thing a myth? Do we do this just because that's what we're supposed to do? Like my family, they dragged me out to church. I had to go. There was no questions about it. It was just, that's what we did. And maybe you find yourself in that situation. You're like, I'm starting to question things. I'm starting to think about things. I don't even know if I believe all this. Maybe you do, but you're just like, I'm forced to do everything. How do we transition from a faith that's maybe our parents and what they believe to a faith that is our own? With that, I want to ask that question tonight. How do you make your faith your own? What exactly does it look like to even ignite our faith? How does it move from something that you were just taught as a kid to something that you can actually live and experience as an adult? In this series, we're going to be looking at how people grow spiritually and how God propels us towards faith. How he gives us a faith that we can move forward with in our life instead of something that it's just for kids, and then when I outgrow it, and that's it. But there's many ideas out there as to how we could do this. Sometimes, if I just show up to church more, my faith will become my own. If I just read my Bible more, or even if I take some time to memorize some verses, my faith will become my own. And while those things can be good, while those things can be very good, they don't actually help propel you towards a faith that can be your own. Just reading the Bible, just showing up to church, just making sure you have perfect attendance or whatever it is, those things aren't the thing that actually make it your own to where you can say, this is mine, I have it. And God wants you to be able to grow in your relationship with him to where it's this idea. God wants you to grow in your relationship with him more than even you do. Did you ever think about that? If there is a God, and he is real, and he's true based on what the Bible has to say, that God of the Bible actually loves you so much more than you could ever even love him. And he actually wants to see you grow and have a relationship with him that's so much stronger than you even think is possible, than you would even want yourself. Because he knows that's what's best for you, and he wants actually what's best for you here in this life. And so God wants you to grow in your relationship with him more than even you do. If you have your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter 7. We're going to look at verses 24 through 27. If you are using one of our Bibles, it's page number 679. The big number on the page, that's the chapter. And the small numbers, it's kind of like the paragraphs that are broken down. That's the verse. So the first number is the chapter, and then we're going to look at paragraph 24 through 27. It's just an easy way to kind of find places in the Bible. So Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. And I'm just going to read this here to you, and then we'll go from there. Jesus is actually in the middle of giving what's called the Sermon on the Mount. He's on the side of a mountain and he's actually giving a sermon or sharing a message with a whole group of people. And he's sharing with them, all right, what would it look like if you trusted God? What would you do in your life if you just trusted God? Not if you did these things, it would mean that you trust God. Not if you did these things, it would earn you a relationship with God. But if you trusted God, what would you do in your life? What would it look like if you really trusted God? And he talks about a bunch of different things. He talks about loving our enemies. That's a hard thing to do. Some of you are like, I can't even love my sibling, let alone love my enemy. In fact, my sibling is my enemy, all right? You're like, Jesus, why are you talking about this? He talks about giving to others who are in need. He talks about praying. He talks about not judging as if we're better than someone else. And so he's saying, all right, these are all characteristics of if you trust me, this is what your life is going to start to look like. It's not going to be like this right away, but it's going to be moving in this direction to where the love that you have for people is different. Sure, we can all love people that are nice to us, but people who aren't even nice to us, how on earth could we love a person like that? And Jesus shares some of that with the people as he's sharing this lesson, this message. And he hits this point to where he wants to share about, all right, what's the foundation? What can we cling to? What can we hold on to? In Matthew chapter 7, verses 27, or 24 to 27, it says, therefore, who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall because it had a foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. As we're thinking about this, you can kind of get the visual, right? Most of you guys probably aren't in construction. But you get the difference between, all right, if I'm going to build a house, am I going to build it on like a sandbox sand to where like as soon as it rains, it starts shifting around and doing anything? Or am I going to build it on rock, on bedrock, on some sort of foundation to where it can't move? That kind of makes sense to us, right? We kind of get that. We know sand is very unstable. And yet Jesus draws this comparison. He says it here in this verse. Dan, if you want to put it up for me. In Matthew 7:24, it says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and then puts them into practice, it's like this guy who builds his house on a rock. All right, so he's not giving us instructions here on how to build houses. He's using that as an example. And he's saying, all right, listen, if you want your life to be built on something stable, something that lasts, something that you can count on, something that when the storms of life come, it's not going to knock you over. When the difficulties of choices that come up, to whether, all right, am I going to do this? I really want to do this, but I don't know if I should. I know God says I shouldn't, but and all right, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to do this. What's that foundation that keeps you in those moments to actually hold on to God, to actually have a faith that lasts beyond just, yeah, my parents told me to do this, and my church said to do it, so I'm just going to do it because they said so. How does it actually become your own? And I love this. He says, he who hears these words of mine. Most of the time when it comes to our faith, we center it around listening, hearing, learning. That is fantastic. You know, it's good to come to church. It's good to read God's word. It's good to learn. It's good to trust God on things. But trusting him doesn't mean that I just hear it and then that's it. We can all hear things, can't we? We can all even learn things. But do I actually believe it enough to do something about it? You want to go to the next slide? There's more to having a real and authentic faith of your own than just hearing. Picture this. For some of you guys, you are taking your driver's test, already had your driver's test. For some of you guys, you're a bit younger, but imagine with me, you're going to go take your driver's test, all right? And then try to convince your parents, even at fifth graders, all right? We got some fifth graders here tonight, which, by the way, give the fifth graders a hand for coming out.
What do you guys say?
Love your enemy. No, I'm kidding.
One of them is my brother.
So here's how this works. Think about it this way. If we're going to go take our driver's test, what's one of the things that we get? We get a nice book, right? Maybe this isn't the book you got, but you get the book. Now imagine, you read the book. You study the book. You know every word in the book. Even middle schoolers, right? You guys could read the book, learn the book, study every word in the book, memorize the book. Now imagine, you finish the book to where you know it cold. You have it down. You have it completely figured out. After you finish it, you go to your dad and say, hey, listen, I want to go on a road trip. Can I have the car? I want to go on a road trip. Can I have the car? I just finished reading this. I've learned everything there is that is written about driving a car. I'd like to just take it out. Can I do it? What's your father going to say?
Legal issues in all of this right now.
Many legal issues, right?
And
You got to take the test. You actually have to go and do something. You have to prove to the state of New York that you can actually do this. You got to take the test. You got to wait a period of time. You got to practice in that time. You have to move along the process to where finally at one point, after you've done it for a while, you can step out and maybe do something you've never done before. Take the car cross country. But here's the thing. A middle schooler, a fifth grader could read the book, could listen, and could know this really well. Does that make them a driver?
No. Yes.
Yeah, middle schooler like, yes, let's do this.
basic theory of driving.
But here's the problem. We all know when it comes to driving, it's not just about hearing. It's not just about hearing. You actually have to go and do something. You have to practice. You have to grow it so that it'll actually take effect in your life. So hopefully when you're 35 or 40 or whatever and you're driving around, you're going to be able to drive. And it's not something that you're like, I don't know if I can do this, See, go ahead to the next slide. When it comes to practice, practice makes our faith more real. Most of the time when it comes to how we even think about our faith, it centers around, hey, if I can just listen, if I can just learn these things, I'm good. But practicing it, actually doing it, it's what makes our faith real. And when it comes to adults, here's something for you to think about. Go ahead to the next slide. The people who develop an adult faith are people who learn to hear and then put into practice. They're people who hear. I'm hearing what you're saying, God. I'm not ignoring that. I'm not putting that aside. I'm spending time actually getting to know you. But I'm then taking a step and doing something about it. I'm listening and then doing. I'm listening and then doing. If you read through these next couple of verses, you see that in the example. This is there, verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine puts them into practice like a wise man who built his house on the rocks. And then, when the rain comes in verse 25, the rains came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because, why? Because the guy just knew he was supposed to put his house on the rock? No, because he actually did. And it stood firm. Verse 26 and 27. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rains came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. You can have perfect church attendance. You can learn so much about God. But if you don't believe it enough to actually put it into practice, when he says, hey, I want you to pray, as he was talking about prayer before in an earlier part of this message, as he's talking about it, he said, I want you to pray. I want you to actually go to God, and I want you to talk to him, believing that he's there. We can read that and go, hey, I should pray. And then if we leave it there, we're actually not starting to practice our faith in a way that's going to last through the storms, last through the difficulties, last through the questions. Asking God to help you to put this stuff into practice. If we don't do those things, we will slip and we will fall away because our faith isn't our own, it is our parents. And the flip side, you can do all the good things, but if you aren't actually listening to God to find out what you need to trust in him, you can be the best person ever. You can do all the right things, but if you're not actually getting to know who God is and that you should do that because you are thankful to God for what he's done for you, you're just doing it to say, hey God, look at me, I'm awesome. Look at how much I care for people and do all this. Then the doing without the listening actually will develop into a faith that really isn't your own. It's a faith that starts to crumble. It's a both. We have to listen, but we have to do. And so this is, if there's a statement I can leave you with, it's this: strong faith is about doing, not just knowing. Strong faith is about doing, not just knowing. James chapter 1, verse 22, it says, but don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you are only fooling yourself. How often do we do this? And maybe it starts in an area to trust God just in a normal area of life. Think about it this way. Go ahead and throw that next one up. Start with trusting God in a normal area of life. Sometimes we look at it as like, God, I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you care. Those are big questions, aren't they? Now, if we're honest, those are big, important, and foundational questions. But you probably don't go walking through school thinking about that all the time, do you? You're probably not just like going through, you're like, I just got to survive this day. Maybe if I can survive the day, there is a God that exists. But I just got to get through this day. And so trusting him in maybe some of the normal, simple areas of life. And starting there saying, all right, God, I don't know if you're real, but you said that I should love my enemies. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I'm going to take a small step and love my sibling. I'm going to take a small step and love my parents. My parents are terrible to me. And maybe they aren't, maybe they are, but maybe that's how you feel. And you know what, God? You say to honor my parents, and so I'm going to love them, and I'm going to honor them, even though I know they don't deserve it, and I don't want to, and I don't even know if you're there, I don't even know if you care, but I'm just going to take this small step and try to trust you in just one of those areas. And you might be amazed to find out what God might do with that. As you're going through these, maybe be asking yourself this question. Maybe ask yourself this: am I doing this? Am I even trying? Or have I been fooled into thinking that knowing is enough? As you're dealing with the relationships in your life, as you're dealing with, the things that you know that God's called you to. I wrote down a list here. These are some of the lists that I found, some I put down my own. Forgiving siblings. How many of you would say, hey, it's in the Bible that we should forgive people? All right, raise your hand if you think that the Bible might have something to say about forgiving people and that we should do it. Okay, most everybody in the room, right? This is something that's pretty clear. Now, actually doing it, it's pretty difficult, isn't it? So you got to ask yourself, am I doing this? Am I even trying? Or I've been fooled into thinking that knowing that forgiving someone is enough. Maybe it's loving your neighbor, praying for your enemies, giving to people in need, serving people who can't serve me back or repay me back. Maybe it's making wise decisions with relationships, being with someone who loves God, someone who's going to push me towards God and not away. We can delve into even some of the harder areas as you guys grow and develop. Areas like premarital sex. That's a tough topic. And I think we can delve in and say, all right, I think I know what God says about it. He wants me to save myself for something better. He's not trying to keep you from something that is awesome. He's trying to keep you from something that will harm you. But we can probably all say, hey, you know, I've heard the speech, I've heard it, you know, I know. But am I doing this? When that moment of crisis maybe even comes, and you're with somebody that you really care about, am I doing this? Am I even trying, or have I been fooled into thinking that knowing is enough? Maybe speaking up for people who are hurt. Are you willing to take a chance on Jesus? Are you willing to take a chance this week to where it's like, all right, I don't know if I can trust you on all these things, but God, there's just this small area. I'm willing to take that step and trust you. Because I know if I want to even find out if you're real, I gotta start to investigate. And investigating isn't just learning. I gotta start to experience it. And so I gotta try. And am I willing to take that step to try? So that I can find out for myself if this is something real for me. I know everybody else is saying, yeah, it's real, go, you know, but is it real for me? Is it mine? I'll leave you with this again. Strong faith is about doing, not just knowing. And so what will you do this week? Think about it as you return back to school. Think about it as you're dealing with family, friends. Pick one area that you can say, all right, God, I'm normally dealing with this. What do you say about it, and can I trust you enough on this? It's going to be hard, but can I trust you on it? And you might find that your faith goes from being your parents or just a belief system that you hear on Wednesday night, and it turns into something that could be mine. If you got some questions, we want to talk about it with your group leaders. If you want to talk about this some more, we're going to have you guys split off into group time here in just a second. And what we're going to do, fifth graders, if you can, fifth graders, I want you to kind of tag along with me. You guys are going to come with me. But just take some time, talk with your group leaders, talk this through. Because again, is this something we're just going to listen to and then walk out the door? No. Or is this something that, I hope not. Or is it something that we can actually grow from and actually put into practice? All right? Go ahead, split up into your groups.